When we first made our list of the 10 best PlayStation 5 games in December of last year, Sony's next-gen White Tower had only been out for barely a month. Was it any wonder, therefore, to see that frazzled Geordie bloke grow out his hair to an almost insane degree? Poor Liam only had slim pickings to choose from for that initial video. However, 12 months have passed since then, and if you can believe it, PlayStation 5 games have continued to release. Crazy, I know. That's why, before this year comes to a complete close, we're updating and re-evaluating our picks for the 10 best PlayStation 5 games you can play right now as of December 2021. Before we start this bold endeavour, if you could do me a favour and like this video and subscribe to the channel, it would really help us out a lot. But enough of that, let's dive straight on in. What initially started out as a mere Yakuza spin-off that saw you join proceedings on the other side of the law has quickly turned into its own beast. And true, while RGG Studios' Judgment series received a full-blown sequel this year, it's the 2019 original that still stands as the superior detective game. Judgment, no loss to be seen here, shines even more now thanks to its current-gen version on PlayStation 5. Which portrays Yagami's various thug beatdowns and clue-solving exploits in the best light possible. Judgment might largely be made up of the same bones seen in the Yakuza series, but it just about manages to do things differently enough that policing the mean streets of Kamiyocho feels utterly distinct and unique. Another thing Judgment also has going for it is its status as somewhat of a blank slate. The perfect jumping on point for new incoming players who have always been curious about this unruly Yakuza thing and doesn't want to break out a spreadsheet in order to find out where to begin. Cracking cases as a hard-boiled Japanese detective is a beautiful thing, it turns out, hence why Judgment Remastered on PS5 ranks as number 10 on our list of the platform's best games right now. Never one to be upstaged by his fellow super friend and mentor, a year on, Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales swings straight in as one of the very best PlayStation 5 games. A lot of this is due to how it cleverly uses the mechanics and world of Insomniac's initial Spider-Man outing to manifest characters and a story that does great justice to Miles Morales' version of the storied wall crawler. Sure, we had a small glimpse of him in the main game, but this extra slice of winter-themed web-slinging proved just as fun and, perhaps more importantly, didn't outstay its welcome. Spider-Man Remastered was also very well and good, but was I the only one who couldn't get past that freaky-looking childlike Peter Parker? Needless to say, Spider-Man Miles Morales suffered from no such problems. Spider-Man Miles Morales is obviously also available to play on PS4, but back during those early months of the console's life, it was the PS5 version that presented a snow-laden New York City in all its glory. Plus, with a new raft of spider suits to unlock, the option to switch between a silky smooth performance mode or beautiful ray-traced graphical fidelity, taking down bad guys in underground bases and rooftops never ceases to be fun. Spider-Man Miles Morales is a must-play for fans of the original, mainly because it still plays exceptionally and features a narrative that can get surprisingly personal at times. It might have taken a bit of time getting here, but the intriguing mystery and surrealist gameplay of Disco Elysium are still well worth playing on PS5 by way of its definitive Final Cut version. It doesn't take you long to realise that this is an RPG unlike any other, casting you as a drunken amnesiac detective trying to assess a range of unusual situations, chief amongst them being, why is there a lynched body still strung up out in the open and who would be responsible for such a murder? Before you know it, tugging on this thread leads you down more than a few rabbit holes. Disco Elysium: The Final Cut features all new quests, full voice support for every bit of dialogue in the game, of which there are hundreds, and even more skills in which to battle with the own demons in your head. For all these reasons and more, Revachol is a city begging to be explored in a way unique to your own self-interests. Will you like the detective you end up being? Who's to say? But this brain-bending mystery is worth delving into in order to find out. The first 2021 game on this list, in at number 7, is very much a glitzy return to form for PlayStation's premier duo of platforming heroes. Because, as well as being one of PlayStation 5's best showcase titles yet, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart manages to stay true to the characters we know, while having the bravery to introduce new ones, all as part of a dimension-hopping journey that is always a treat to play and look at. Now, I know it says a lot, but gosh darn it, I'm going to say it one more time. Playing Rift Apart very much feels like getting to take part in your very own Pixar movie. That is, until Insomniac Games eventually prove us wrong when Ratchet & Clank inevitably return. Also helping the Lombaxan robot's PS5 debut was the inclusion of arguably the most creative arsenal of ass-kicking weaponry yet. From the simplicity of the burst pistol's single-shot firing, to the appropriately named Drillhound's ability to dig under obstacles in order to explode in any targeted enemy's face. Every gun feels exceptional to fire, thanks to some of the most satisfying haptic feedback and adaptive trigger support we've seen yet. By the end of the journey, there's an embarrassment of bombastic riches for you to deploy in Rift Apart. It remains one of PlayStation 5's best true exclusives, hence why it makes our list. The 7th mainline installment into Arc System Works' Guilty Gear series of fighting games doesn't disappoint on PlayStation 5. And how does it fare for its current-gen debut? Extremely well overall, providing that longtime fans are able to accept many of the new major changes introduced, such as the new wall break feature that lets you transition between stages when completing certain combos, as well as a much higher damage rate overall. Such additions make Guilty Gear a lot more accessible for newcomers. Despite this though, it still manages to provide a lot of complexity to these 1v1 bouts. Guilty Gear Strive also looks drop-dead gorgeous running natively on a PlayStation 5. The anime-inspired visuals truly pop off the screen for the first time ever, to the extent that you'd be forgiven for thinking that this isn't a game at all, but rather a feature-length movie. It's a great example of a developer committing to the 2D aesthetic in the modern gaming age, but playing with depth and perspective enough to make kicking and punching people in the face just as fresh and exhilarating as it was 20 years ago. Simply put, Guilty Gear Strive is the best fighting game on PlayStation 5. Resident Evil's return to true survival horror has been on the up and up, pretty much since Resident Evil 7's release way back in 2017. That's why, remakes aside, us die-hard fans of the series were excited to see what Capcom had up its sleeve next for the new mainline entry. Fortunately, Resident Evil Village succeeds in building off the intimate first-person scares present in poor Ethan's initial adventure. Only now, you're transported to a much grander setting, with a lot more firepower and enemy types to contend with. For me, Resident Evil Village managed to straddle the perfect line between the series' trademark campiness without ever straying too far from that underlying sense of fear. For me, it's the ideal Resident Evil mixture. Is Resident Evil Village highly inspired by Resident Evil 4? Absolutely. That said, it never fails to come into its own thanks to some bold story decisions, several excitingly tense set-piece moments, and some interesting additions to Resident Evil lore. Village also looks and runs a treat on PS5, keeping you on your toes by placing you in environments that look extremely lifelike, usually with a seedy pursuer somewhere on your tail. Needless to say, if you have a PlayStation 5 and want to indulge in some scares, Resident Evil Village should absolutely be the go-to choice. Suited and booted for another raft of high-profile murder contracts, there's a sense in Hitman 3 that it's everything developer IO Interactive had been working towards. The so-called World of Assassination trilogy may have already established the perfect formula in which to place you within a thriving killer's sandbox, but this third rebooted outing is where it all comes together perfectly. I don't say this lightly, but it's masterful, and this is largely because Hitman 3 features some of the most standout assignments and locations the franchise has ever produced, and it all plays stunningly on PlayStation's current-gen box. Starting off with a glistening ascent into a shimmering Dubai tower before taking you to an underground robotics lab and elsewhere, Hitman 3 always makes dispatching the necessary targets satisfyingly creative. For many, the showpiece section is of course the Agatha Christie/Sherlock Holmes influence level, taking place in a Dartmoor manor and estate. Such thoughtful scenarios only open up more once you start to pick away at them. Hitman 3 is a great stealth game in its own right, but reached another level on PS5 once you import content from the prior two games and have at it all over again. Returnal is a PS5 exclusive game unlike anything Housemarque has made before. What was once a studio primarily known for its work within the top-down twin-stick shooter realm has now truly entered AAA territory, casting us as unwitting astronaut Celine during her fight to repeatedly escape a cursed planet. Providing you have the time and patience for it, RETURNAL smartly tweaks the roguelike structure to constantly give meaning to the many alien bouts you're forced to engage in. Being stuck in a time loop has its drawbacks, but the more you play, the more you also learn, until finally you reach that point in the final biome as an enemy-slaying badass. Another thing that impressed me most about RETURNAL is that moment, maybe a couple of runs in, when you're finally able to enter that flow state. It's extremely hard to describe, but for this reason I feel quite comfortable in saying that I've never quite played a PlayStation 5 game quite like RETURNAL. As one of the few true PS5 exclusive games to have been released so far, RETURNAL delights and dazzles you with some wildly evocative otherworldly visuals, alongside some incredibly tight gunplay. The latter is made all the more fulfilling thanks to excellent haptic feedback support on the DualSense, which encourages you to uncover new weapons and engage in surprisingly fresh battle tactics with each pull of the trigger. RETURNAL is a must-play PS5 title for those who enjoy a challenge, seamlessly blending almost arcade-like gameplay with a twisting world and some seriously impressive visuals. The runner-up on our list of best current PS5 games ever is well deserved indeed, easily making a play for being one of the best ever packing games to launch alongside a console. The wonders of ASTRO'S PLAYROOM never cease to amaze. It's a 3D platforming experience that no PS5 owner should miss, and thankfully they never have to thanks to everyone getting a digital copy right out of the box. Team Asobi continue to rival some of the genre's best with this incredibly polished freebie that shows off the benefits of the DualSense controller, all while offering a short but sweet adventure. ASTRO'S PLAYROOM might win some points for being many people's first ever interaction with the PS5, but it earns its high place on this list by living up to the promise of celebrating PlayStation's past and future. Every collectible you find is some form of PlayStation tech or accessory, some being incredibly deep cuts, while all 4 areas are teeming with enough in-game Easter eggs to make you want to keep your previous consoles plugged in forever. ASTRO'S PLAYROOM is about as charming a kickoff to the PlayStation 5 generation as one could ever imagine or hope for. PlayStation 5's best game is one that was originally misunderstood back when its initial incarnation launched in 2009. Over a decade on though, and with some seriously impressive visuals helping to better engross you into its world, Demon's Souls remains the purest example yet of the still relatively fresh subgenre of hardcore action RPGs. With this ground-up PS5 remake, developer Bluepoint Games recreated From Software's vision in minute detail, making the familiar bosses, characters and environments feel fresher than they ever did before back when we first faced them. It's no wonder that Bluepoint has since been snapped up by PlayStation and made an official first-party studio, considering its work here. Demon's Souls is an oppressive, harsh and brutal experience, truly testing players' ability to indulge in a more patient brand of third-person combat that is infinitely rewarding when you fully master it. As a remake, it manages to perfectly strike the correct balance between being respectful while still pushing things forward. As a PS5 game, it continues to be an exceptional play experience. So yes, all has been revealed. Demon's Souls very much remains the modern masterpiece as we said last year, topping our list of the 10 best PlayStation 5 games, at least in December of 2021. What do you think of our picks? How many have you played and how many do you intend to play moving into the new year? Be sure to let me know in the comment section below. And when you've done that, be sure to leave this video a like if you enjoyed it, and consider subscribing to the Push Square YouTube channel for everything else PlayStation related. Until next time, thank you as ever for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. I'm gonna say it once again. Playing Rift of Fire... That's not going in.